Somewhere down a narrow lane, past hedgerows heavy with the last wild roses of the season, there is a small stone cottage where the kettle is always just beginning to sing. Tonight, we are going to sit there together, in a low-beamed kitchen, warmed by a slow-burning hearth, while smoke drifts gently from the chimney into a soft grey evening sky. There is nowhere else to be. There is nothing left to do. There is only the quiet clink of a teacup being set down, the low murmur of rain that hasn't quite decided to fall, and the long, easy stillness of a countryside evening settling in around us. Before we begin, let yourself get comfortable. Let your shoulders drop, heavy and unhurried, the way a coat drops from tired hands onto the back of a familiar chair. If you'd like, dim the lights around you now, or simply close your eyes and let the dark behind your eyelids become its own soft evening sky. There is no need to carry anything from today into tonight. The day has already finished. It is folded away now, quietly, the way a well-used blanket is folded and set aside until it's needed again. Tonight we are visiting a small stone cottage at the edge of an English village, tucked behind a low wooden gate and a garden gone lush and sleepy with late-season blooms. It is the kind of cottage that seems to have grown out of the hillside itself, rather than being built upon it. Its walls thick and pale, its roof heavy with old grey thatch, its chimney sending up a thin, unhurried ribbon of wood smoke into the cooling evening air. Inside, a fire is already lit, low and steady, and a kettle rests on the hob, beginning its long, slow climb toward a whistle that is in absolutely no hurry to arrive. There is tea to be made tonight, and biscuits already cooling on a wire rack, and nothing at all that needs to happen quickly. Perhaps you have been to a place like this before, at some point in your own life. Some quiet room lit only by firelight, some evening when the whole world seemed to have agreed, just for a few hours, to leave you entirely alone. If you have, let that memory settle gently alongside this one. If you haven't, that's all right too. Some places we only ever visit in the space just before sleep, and that is no less real a place to rest. Let your breathing slow to match the pace of this place. In softly, out even more softly. Let your mind settle the way the last of the evening light settles over the hills outside the sods. Cottage window, golden and low and utterly unbothered by the passing of time. There is nothing ahead of you tonight but a warm kitchen, a quiet garden, and the long, comfortable hours of a countryside evening that has absolutely nowhere else to be. You do not need to picture every detail perfectly. Simply let the images arrive the way the evening light arrives, slowly, softly, one gentle layer settling over the last. If your thoughts drift elsewhere for a moment, that is perfectly all right. You can always find your way back here, to this small stone cottage, this low wooden gate, this warm and waiting kitchen, whenever you are ready to return. Think for a moment of the particular comfort of a countryside evening after a full and gentle day. The garden work finished, the gate latched loosely behind you, first hint of a cool breeze carrying the promise of rain that hasn't quite decided to fall yet. This is the hour the cottage loves best, the hour when the fire is lit not out of necessity, but simply for the pleasure of its glow, when the kettle is filled not because tea is urgently needed, but because an evening without tea would tonight feel somehow unfinished. Let that feeling settle over you now, the way it settles over the cottage, the feeling of a day well spent, quietly finished, with nothing left to do but rest. There is no clock to watch tonight, no schedule waiting on the other side of this story. Only the cottage, only the garden, only the long, slow evening stretching out ahead of you, exactly as unhurried as you need it to be. The cottage sits just off a narrow lane, half hidden behind a hedge of hawthorn and late-blooming honeysuckle, its low wooden gate hanging slightly open as though it has simply given up trying to keep the garden's abundance contained. Beyond the gate, a stone path winds unevenly through beds of lavender gone silver-purple with the season, past clusters of foxglove bowing gently under their own weight, past a rose bush still holding a handful of soft pink blooms despite the lateness of the year. The lane itself is quiet at this hour, bordered on either side by hedgerows thick with the last blackberries of the season, dark and heavy on their thorny branches, glistening faintly where the day's dampness still clings to them. A wooden signpost leans slightly at the lane's bend, its lettering faded and soft with age, pointing unhurriedly toward the village a little further on, though nothing about this evening suggests any need to go there tonight. Beyond the hedgerow, a scattering of sheep graze slowly in a neighbouring field, their pale wool catching the day's last warm light, their movements unhurried, content, the low murmur of their occasional bleating carrying softly across the still evening air before fading into silence again. The air here smells of rain that hasn't fallen yet, mixed with the sweetness of crushed lavender underfoot and the low, comforting scent of woodsmoke drifting down from the chimney above. Somewhere nearby, damp earth and cut grass add their own quiet notes to the evening air, the particular smell of a garden that has been well tended all summer and is only now, gently, beginning to rest. Above the garden, the sky continues its slow transformation, the last warm gold along the horizon giving way gradually to a deeper blue, thin clouds catching the fading light in soft streaks of rose and grey. A single early star appears near the horizon, faint and patient, soon to be joined by countless others once the sky finishes its unhurried journey into full evening. The air carries a faint chill now, too, just enough to be noticed, just enough to make the promise of a warm fire and hot tea feel like exactly the right thing for this particular hour. A swallow or two still cuts low across the garden, gathering the last insects of the day before, returning to whatever eave or barn rafter it calls home for the night. Its flight unhurried, despite its speed, simply part of the evening's larger, gentler rhythm. The cottage itself is built of pale honey-coloured stone, its walls thick enough to hold the day's last warmth long into the evening, its small windows framed in white-painted wood, gone soft with age. A thick, uneven thatch roof slopes low over the walls, deep green with moss along its northern edge, and from its single chimney a slow, steady thread of smoke rises straight up into a sky the colour of faded denim, streaked here and there with soft peach where the sun has only just gone down. Along the front wall, a climbing clematis has wound itself loosely around a wooden trellis, its last few star-shaped blooms fading gently to a soft violet grey. Beneath the largest front window, a stone trough overflows with trailing nasturtiums, their leaves round and generous, their last orange flowers glowing faintly like tiny embers scattered among the green. A weather vane shaped like a running fox sits atop the chimney, turning only slightly, unhurried in a breeze too gentle to insist on any particular direction. Ivy climbs one corner of the cottage in a loose, unhurried tangle, its leaves just beginning to blush at the edges with the first hints of autumn colour. A wooden bench sits beneath the front window, weathered grey, holding a single forgotten gardening glove and a small watering can tipped gently on its side, its work finished for the day. Through the small front window, warm light glows steady and amber, and if you look closely, you can just make out the shape of a kettle beginning to steam on the hob inside, and the low, flickering light of a fire burning in the hearth beyond it. The window glass is old, faintly wavy, the kind that turns the warm light within into something even softer, even gentler, as it spills out into the blue evening garden. Beside the window, a small stone step leads up to the front door, its surface worn into a gentle dip by countless unhurried footsteps over many years. A terracotta pot on either side holds cheerful, late-blooming marigolds, their orange petals glowing faintly even in the dimming light, and a woven doormat, edges softened with age, reads a simple word in faded letters: welcome. The whole approach to the door feels less like arriving somewhere new and more like returning to somewhere long familiar, somewhere that has been quietly waiting, patient and warm, for exactly this moment. A stone path leads around the side of the cottage, past a small vegetable patch where the last runner beans climb tangled wooden frames, past a row of herbs, rosemary and thyme, and a little unruly mint, growing thick and fragrant along a low garden wall. A wooden rain barrel stands quietly in one corner, its surface holding a still, dark reflection of the darkening sky above. The path continues past a small potting shed, its door slightly ajar, terracotta pots stacked in unhurried towers along one wall, a pair of gardening shears resting on a wooden shelf beside a ball of twine, and a half-used packet of seeds saved for next spring. A worn straw hat hangs from a nail by the door, its brim a little bent from years of shading, the same patient gardener from the same gentle summer sun. Nearer the cottage door, a boot scraper sits embedded in the stone step, its iron surface smoothed and darkened with age, and beside it, a small collection of Wellington boots leans together in a loose, companionable row, one pair still faintly dusted with garden soil from the afternoon's unhurried work. The front door itself is a deep, weathered green, its brass knocker shaped like a small running hare, and above it, a simple wooden sign, hand-painted, reads only a single word, worn soft with years of rain and sun: sanctuary. At the back of the garden, a low stone wall marks the edge of the property, and beyond it, gently rolling countryside stretches out into the distance, hedgerows and fields going soft and blue in the fading light, a single distant hill, crowned with a small stand of old oak trees, their outlines softened now to little more than a gentle grey-green smudge against the sky. A narrow wooden gate set into the stone wall leads out toward a footpath that wanders off through the neighbouring fields, though tonight it sits closed, its latch resting quietly, unneeded, until some other, brighter morning. Along the wall's base, a scattering of wild poppies has gone to seed, their dry pods nodding gently, releasing the occasional seed into the cool evening air. Further along, a single old apple tree leans companionably against the wall, its branches heavy with the last of the season's fruit, a few windfalls resting in the grass below, their sweet, slightly fermented scent mixing faintly with the lavender and wood smoke already thick in the air. A low wooden bench sits near the apple tree, angled just so toward the view of the distant hills, clearly a favourite spot for some quiet, unhurried hour of an afternoon now finished. Tonight it sits empty, dew already beginning to gather softly along its worn grey slats, patient, waiting, in no hurry at all for its next visitor. Everything here moves slowly, the way things move in a garden that has done its work for the season and is only now settling into rest. The roses nod, the lavender sways, just barely, the smoke drifts, and somewhere, close enough to hear, but far enough not to intrude, a wood pigeon calls once, low and soft, then falls quiet again, content simply to let the evening be exactly as unhurried as it wants to be. Further along the hedgerow, a hedgehog rustles quietly through fallen leaves, unhurried, unbothered by your presence, going about its own small evening errands before disappearing beneath a tangle of blackberry vines. A pair of wood pigeons settle heavily onto the ridge of the thatched roof, shuffling their feathers once before falling still, silhouetted softly against the deepening blue of the sky. There is, in this last stretch of daylight, a particular kind of quiet that seems to belong only to gardens like this one, gardens that have spent an entire summer being generous and are now, at last, allowed simply to rest. Inside, the cottage kitchen is small and low-beamed, its ceiling crossed with dark, aged timber hung here and there with bundles of drying herbs, lavender and rosemary, their scent settling softly into the warm air of the room. A stone floor, uneven and cool underfoot near the doorway, grows warmer as it nears the hearth, where a fire burns low and steady, its light flickering gently across the whitewashed walls. A dresser stands along the far wall, its shelves crowded pleasantly with mismatched china, a chipped blue jug, a stack of folded linen napkins gone soft with washing, a small brass clock ticking quietly, unhurried, its hands moving at exactly the pace this kitchen prefers. Copper pots hang from hooks near the hearth, their surfaces glowing faintly amber in the firelight, each one dented gently with years of good use. A woven rug, faded reds and blues, lies across the floor before the fire, worn thin in the spot where feet have rested most often over many winters. Near the back door, a row of pegs holds a soft collection of coats and scarves, one small basket beneath them filled with garden twine and spare buttons, and a single, half-used ball of wool. A calendar hangs beside the pegs, its pages turned to the current month, a few small notes penciled here and there, nothing urgent, nothing pressing, simply the gentle bookkeeping of an unhurried life. Through the small window above the sink, the last of the garden's silhouette is just visible, roses and lavender fading softly into the deepening blue of evening. An old wooden table sits at the center of the room, its surface pale and worn smooth by many years of unhurried meals, a small clay jug of late garden flowers resting near its center, roses and lavender, and a few sprigs of something soft and yellow, arranged not for show, but simply because it seemed a pleasant thing to do on a quiet afternoon. Two mismatched chairs, one wicker, one wooden, sit close together near the hearth, their cushions soft and faded with age and comfort. On the hob, the kettle continues its long, slow climb toward a whistle, a low hiss building gradually beneath the lid, patient, unbothered, in no particular hurry to announce itself. Beside it, a small brown teapot waits on the counter, its glaze crackled with age, a strainer resting nearby, and a tin of loose tea already opened, filling the kitchen faintly with the scent of bergamot and something a little like dried apple. The hearth itself is deep and old, its stones black and smooth by generations of fires, just like this one, a wrought iron poker resting against its side, a small brass companion set holding a tiny shovel and brush hung neatly from a stand nearby. A basket of split logs sits close by, their bark pale and papery, ready to feed the fire slowly through however many hours the evening decides to take. Above the mantel, the low beam is scorched faintly dark in places, a soft record of countless winters spent exactly this way, unhurried, warm, content. A folded newspaper rests on the small side table beside the wicker chair, its crossword half finished in pencil, abandoned sometime earlier in the afternoon in favor of the garden and its lavender and its last stubborn roses. A woman moves quietly about the kitchen, unhurried in every motion, humming some small, wordless tune beneath her breath as she reaches for two teacups from a shelf lined with mismatched china, blue and white, gold-rimmed, each one slightly different from the last, collected over many years rather than bought all at once. She sets them gently on the table, along with a small plate of biscuits, still faintly warm from the oven, their edges golden, a light dusting of sugar catching the firelight. She wears a soft cardigan the color of oatmeal, its sleeves pushed loosely up past her elbows, and a pair of well-worn slippers that make almost no sound at all against the stone floor. Her movements have the particular ease of someone entirely at home in her own small kitchen, someone who could locate any cup, any spoon, any tin of tea in complete darkness if she needed to, though tonight there is no need. The firelight and a single small lamp on the windowsill offering more than enough warm, gentle light to see by. A small radio on the counter, its dial long since fixed on some quiet evening station, plays something soft and wordless beneath the crackle of the fire, barely loud enough to notice, exactly loud enough to add one more gentle layer to the room's easy hush. She glances toward the window once, watching the last of the daylight fade over the garden, and smiles the small, private smile of someone who has spent a great many evenings exactly this way and never once grown tired of it. Rain's coming, she might say quietly, to no one in particular, or perhaps to you, but not for a while yet. Plenty of time for tea first. The kettle, at last, begins its long, gentle whistle, rising slowly rather than all at once, and she lifts it from the hob with practiced, unhurried hands, pouring the steaming water carefully into the waiting teapot. Steam rises in soft curls, catching the firelight, and the scent of tea, warm and faintly floral, begins to fill the low-beamed room, mixing gently with wood smoke and dried lavender and the last lingering smell of fresh-baked biscuits. She sets the teapot down to steep, covers it with a small knitted cozy the colour of ripe plums, and settles into the wicker chair nearest the hearth with a soft, contented sigh, the kind of sigh that belongs only to the very end of a long, unhurried day. For a moment, neither of you says anything at all, and the silence is not empty but full of firelight and the small tick of the brass clock on the dresser and the distant, muffled sound of wind beginning to stir gently through the hedgerows outside. She tucks her feet up beneath her in the chair, pulling a soft woolen throw from its arm and settling it loosely over her knees, and glances toward you with an expression that needs no words at all, an invitation simply to sit, simply to rest, simply to let the evening unfold at whatever pace it likes. Above the hearth, a low wooden mantel holds a scattering of small, well-loved things, a chipped china dog, a jar of dried lavender heads, a single brass candlestick holding a half-burned taper, its wax pooled in soft, uneven rings from many evenings, just like this one. A framed photograph, faded gently with age, shows the same cottage garden in an earlier summer, roses fuller, hedges lower, though the low wooden gate looks exactly the same, hanging open in exactly the same unhurried way. A worn woolen shawl hangs over the back of the second chair, folded loosely, clearly set aside only recently, as though its owner had only just decided the fire's warmth was, for the moment, quite enough on its own. Near the window, a small writing desk holds a stack of letters tied with faded ribbon, a fountain pen resting beside them, its cap loosely on, unhurried, unfinished, waiting for some quieter morning to be picked up again. The whole room has the particular feeling of a place that has been lived in slowly, gently, for a very long time, every object exactly where it has always been, nothing rushed into its place, nothing likely to be rushed out of it either. The tea steeps quietly on the table, its scent deepening, mingling with wood smoke and dried lavender in the warm, low-beamed air of the kitchen. Outside, the last blue light fades slowly from the garden, and the small window begins to hold nothing but its own warm reflection, the fire, the lamp, the soft shapes of the room, glowing gently back into the darkening evening. The small brass clock on the dresser ticks on, unhurried, marking a kind of time that has nothing urgent to measure. The fire shifts once, settling deeper into itself with a soft crackle, sending a brief handful of sparks upward before returning to its low, steady glow. Somewhere above, in the thatch, a small bird rustles once, settling into its own night's rest, and then falls quiet again. The tea steeps on, the fire glows low, the rain outside still waits. The tea steeps on, the fire glows low, the evening settles deeper still. She pours, eventually, 2 cups, the tea a deep amber gold, steam curling up gently into the still kitchen air. She slides one gently across the table toward you and wraps both hands around her own, letting the warmth seep slowly into fingers grown a little cool from an afternoon spent in the garden. The biscuits, still faintly warm, sit within easy reach, and she takes one without any particular hurry, breaking it slowly, unhurried, into 2 soft, crumbling halves. The taste, were you to try one yourself, would be simple and warm, a little like shortbread, a little like something baked more for comfort than for show. The kind of biscuit that asks nothing of you except to be enjoyed slowly, with tea, beside a fire, on an evening exactly like this one. She sets the other half down on the small plate between you, unfinished, unhurried, in no rush to decide whether it will be eaten now or a little later, or perhaps not until morning, alongside whatever tea comes next. The gesture is small, but it carries with it the particular ease of a home where nothing needs to be finished quickly, and where half a biscuit left on a plate is simply half a biscuit left on a plate, and not the beginning of any kind of worry. Outside, very faintly now, the first drops of rain begin to fall, not urgently, not heavily, just a slow, soft patter against the thatch above and the window pane beside you, a sound like 1,000 small, gentle taps arriving one at a time, unhurried, welcome. The rain falls softly, the fire glows low, the tea grows warm in your hands. The rain falls softly, the fire glows low, the evening wraps around you both. Somewhere beyond the window, the rain has settled into a rhythm now, no longer a scattering of first drops, but a full, steady patter, gentle against the thatch, gentler still where it reaches the soft earth of the garden below. It is the kind of rain that asks nothing of anyone, content simply to fall, unhurried, endless, all through the quiet countryside night. She reaches for the teapot again, unhurried, and tops up both cups without needing to ask. The tea a little darker now, a little richer, steeped slowly into exactly the strength she prefers. Steam rises once more, curling gently upward before dissolving into the warm kitchen air. The fire pops softly, a small shower of sparks rising and fading within the hearth, and the cat, undisturbed, simply tucks itself a fraction closer to the warmth, one ear flicking once before settling into complete stillness again. Beyond the window, the rain has begun to blur the last visible shapes of the garden entirely, the rose bush, the lavender beds, the low stone wall, all softening now into vague, comfortable suggestions of themselves rather than anything sharply seen. It hardly matters. Everything that needs to be known about the garden tonight is already known. It is resting, it is being gently rained upon, and it will still be there, exactly as it should be, come morning. The evening has, by now, settled into its own unhurried rhythm entirely. Tea and firelight and rain and quiet, each one folding gently into the next, none of them in any particular hurry to give way to whatever comes after. She glances toward the window, watching the rain trace slow lines down the old, wavy glass, and settles further back into her chair, her shoulders loosening, her breathing slowing to match the steady patter outside. The cat, who you had not noticed until now, uncurls from a basket near the hearth and resettles closer to the fire, tucking its nose beneath one paw with a soft, sleepy sigh of its own. The rain gathers steadily now along the edges of the window, small rivulets forming and joining and sliding slowly downward, catching the firelight in brief, glinting streaks before disappearing into the dark wood of the sill. Somewhere out in the garden, a rose, heavy now with rainwater, dips its head a little lower, and a gust, gentle rather than fierce, stirs the lavender into a brief, soft murmur before settling again. Inside, the warmth of the kitchen has become something almost tangible now, a soft weight settling over the shoulders, over the eyelids, over every small tension the day might have left behind. The firelight moves slowly across the low beams overhead, catching the hanging bundles of lavender and rosemary in brief flickers of amber and gold. The woman across the table has grown quieter still, her tea nearly finished, her gaze resting somewhere between the fire and the rain-streaked window, somewhere pleasant, somewhere unhurried. The rain falls softly, the fire glows low, the kitchen holds its quiet warmth. The rain falls softly, the fire glows low, and slowly, gently, so do you. The fire has burned down to a low, steady glow now, more ember than flame, casting a soft orange light across the stone floor and the legs of the old wooden table. The rain continues outside, steady, unhurried, a soft and endless patter against the thatch. The room has grown quieter. Even the clock's ticking seems softer now, somehow, as though it too has slowed to match the pace of the evening. The teacups sit half full now, warm still, quiet still. She has not spoken in some time, neither have you. There is nothing that needs saying. The cat sleeps, the fire settles, the rain falls. Every so often, a log shifts in the hearth, settling further into its own soft collapse, sending up the faintest curl of sparks before returning to stillness. Outside, The garden has gone fully dark now, the roses and lavender no longer visible, only felt, only remembered, resting somewhere out there in the wet and quiet dark, waiting patiently for morning. Somewhere far off, past the low stone wall, past the sleeping sheep, past the dark and quiet hedgerows, the rain continues over the whole soft countryside, unhurried, endless, falling exactly as it has fallen on 100 quiet evenings before this one. The old apple tree in the garden lets go of one more windfall, softly, into the wet grass below, unheard, unseen, simply another small part of the evening settling gently into place. The brass clock on the dresser continues its soft, patient ticking, though it too seems to be slowing now, or perhaps it is only that everything else has slowed enough to make its steady rhythm feel, at last, like the only sound left in the world. The lamp on the windowsill has burned low too, its small flame steady, undemanding, adding only the gentlest extra warmth to a room already full of it. Your eyelids, wherever you are listening from, have grown heavier. The room is warm. The chair is soft. The rain is steady. The woman across from you has closed her eyes now, not quite asleep, simply resting, simply letting the evening hold her the way it is holding you. Somewhere in the thatch above, the small bird from earlier shifts once more, settling deeper into its own night's rest, and then falls entirely silent, as if it too has decided this particular evening deserves nothing less than complete and unhurried quiet. And nothing at all is asking you to stay awake a moment longer than you'd like. The fire is almost entirely embers now, a low, deep orange glow, quiet and patient, needing nothing more from the evening than to burn softly until it too is ready to rest. The rain continues, soft and steady, against the thatched roof above. The teacups, empty now, sit forgotten on the table. The cat has not moved. Neither perhaps have you. There is nothing left in this evening that needs your attention. No further tea to pour. No further words to share. Beyond the window the garden rests fully now in darkness and rain. The roses closed, the lavender still, the old apple tree standing quiet watch over windfalls it will let go of, one by one, through the slow, unhurried nights still to come. The distant hills, the oak trees, the whole soft countryside beyond the cottage wall have all folded themselves into the same deep, dreamless dark. Inside, the small brass clock continues its unhurried ticking, though its sound has grown so familiar now, so woven into the quiet, that it barely registers at all, simply another soft thread in the low, warm hush of the room. The woolen throw has slipped a little further over her knees. The knitted tea cosy sits undisturbed atop its cooling pot. The last candle on the mantel has burned down to little more than a soft, glowing stub, its flame small and steady, in no hurry at all to go out. Only the fire, only the rain, only the low-beamed kitchen, warm and dark and quiet, holding the last soft light of a countryside evening that has settled fully, completely, into rest. Rest now. The cottage is sleeping. Outside, the lane has gone fully quiet now, the hedgerows dark and still beneath the steady rain, the wooden signpost at the bend barely visible, its faded letters resting unread until morning. Somewhere further off, the sheep in the neighbouring field have long since settled into their own quiet rest, pale shapes barely distinguishable now from the misted grass around them. The stars above, hidden ton